So we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Ed Dean. I've been working with IvaSync for a little over 2 years now, and with a heavy focus in reporting. So today we're going to be going over creating boardroom quality reports in Management Reporter. So this is going to be comprised of basically two sections. A shorter section of going through a PowerPoint to give a basic understanding, and then the next section is going to be a live demo to get actually building the reports and making sure everything makes sense. So go ahead and get started here. Management Reporter is comprised of two different client-side applications. There's the Report Designer portion of Management Reporter, and there's the Report Viewer part of Management Reporter. And within that Report Viewer, you can lump the Web Viewer portion of that. As you can probably see, it's a familiar Microsoft Office format with the toolbars on top and all your formatting options up there. So here we have that zoomed in. We're going to be going into each of these as we go through the demo, but I just wanted to show you that if you're familiar with Microsoft Office, it won't look too foreign to you when we get into these client-side applications. So just to give you a visual representation of what goes into a report, we've got this hierarchy here with the report at the top. Underneath the report, that's comprised of a row definition and a column definition. These two elements are required for every report. It's not going to be a valid report if it does not have both of those definitions. Next to those, you can see there's two optional things that go into a report. It's a reporting tree hierarchy and the reporting options themselves. So within the row definition and column definition, you have some more sub-hierarchies here. Both of them have links to financial dimensions, which tells Management Reporter where to get the data from in your ERP system. They have calculations, descriptions, and formatting options, and restrictions. All four of those are available in both column and row definitions. The reporting tree hierarchy basically sets out your organizational levels, and you can tie security to those reporting trees. The reporting options are just general settings that help you generate your report in a reasonable fashion. So the order of creation on these definitions and what goes up to make a report is a matter of personal preference, but I found that the following flow is useful in new Management Reporter environments. Just the way the logic goes, I found this to be the least amount of back and forth. So first, I would create my reporting tree hierarchy. Underneath that, you can see some generic steps there. To do that, you would insert some reporting units from your dimensions, make any changes there, and then you can add security, and then you just save it. Once you've saved your reporting tree, I would move on to the column definition of your report. This is going to set what your report is going to show in its columns and how it's going to qualify what data it's pulling. So here in the column, you're going to add description columns, financial link columns. You can add calculation columns. Once again, formatting and restriction, and which underneath that there's an auto text option, which we'll go into in the demo, but that allows you to create variables on your columns, and then you're going to save and name that one. After the column, we're going to go into the row definition. It's the same as the column definition. What comprises it? You've got descriptions, links, formatting, restrictions, and you'll save that. And then finally, you create the report last, really, because in order to save the report, like I said, it's going to have a column definition and a row definition. And according to this flow, you've already created those two. So when you create a new report, you're just going to identify those two, and then a tree, which is an optional setting, and then any additional configuration and settings, and then you're going to save that. Finally, the last part is the generation of the report. You can make any necessary changes after you validate your data and come back and generate it. So that's the general flow of how you're going to start from scratch in creating a report all the way to the generation of the report. So in terms of viewing your reports, there's two possibilities here. You've got your web viewer part, and within that's the screenshot to the right, and then above that is the report viewer level, which is the screenshot to the left. So Management Reporter here, when you're viewing your reports, it provides several ways that you can view and distribute these. You can download it to an Excel or XPS format. You can print it, or you can email a link to the web viewer portion, or you can copy the link right here, and that will place a link onto your computer's clipboard to be pasted in Word or Link or whatever you desire. Once you've started viewing your reports, in the report viewer you have there's a simple but robust functionality that report viewer provides, and you can easily create different kinds of charts and graphs just by selecting a row or column here. That'll be the last thing we go over in our demo. So now we're going to actually do a performance of creating a report from scratch, focusing on formatting and things like that, but we'll go through the whole report creation. So this is what the report designer portion of the program looks like. This is where you're actually building the reports. Like I said, the first thing that we'll notice is it's pretty similar to Microsoft Office formatting. Down to the left here, we've got our navigation pane. So this is where you can select between your different building blocks. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to follow the same flow that I identified in the PowerPoint. So we'll start with our reporting tree definition. If you just click the reporting tree definitions in the pane and click New up and to the left, we'll start a new reporting tree. This defines the organizational hierarchy for your company. The best way to start one of these is, once you've created a new one, come up to the top left, Edit, Insert Reporting Units from Dimensions. So what this utility does is it looks into your ERP system, and according to the chart of accounts it finds, it can create a hierarchy accordingly. So let's say we've got we want our hierarchy to be comprised of the division segment, which is three segment links, and the department underneath that. Here we can identify if we only wanted certain divisions to be pulled in or only certain departments here, but we're going to pull in all of them. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Here it added our entire reporting tree according to what was found in the chart of accounts here. Here you can see these labelings were automatic because these segments in your ERP system were labeled. The ones that are blank are not labeled in GP. So just to mention, if you wanted to label these, you can obviously just type in a label here, like miscellaneous, and save that. But really, you want to change. It would be better to change it in your ERP system and add descriptions to the segments themselves. So that way, anytime you built a reporting tree, it would fill in those descriptions for you automatically. So let me go over security. It can be tied to this reporting tree. Here it is. It's called unit security. So if you want to say this administration division, if we wanted to limit that to certain users, we would just choose the administration row here. Come over to unit security, and we could choose, according to Management Reporter Security, we could choose a user or a group of user that would be able to access this one level of the reporting tree. So here I put my own user in here. If I generate a report against this administration division, only I would be able to view it. No one else would be able to view any of the data in there. Blank unit security means there is no unit security applied. We don't need security on that, so we're going to go ahead and delete it, but I did want to mention that. As it can provide some extra protection on sensitive data. So let's go ahead and save that. Since it's a new one, we can just click the save icon there. We'll call it reporting tree. You can give it a description if you like. So now it's saved here. We can see it's up here. We can access it again just by double clicking. You can put it in a folder by right clicking, creating a new folder. and dragging it into that folder. So we've created our reporting tree. The next thing on our list was to create a column definition. So as our test, we'll say that let's create a, since we just ended the first quarter of 2014, let's say we want to analyze our first quarter results with a rolling monthly income statement. So let's start that with a column definition. So here, this is where you'll identify what columns are going to come on your report. The first one is almost always going to be either the row descriptions, or some people like to have the actual accounts that were being pulled as their first column. That might make it a little messy. I prefer to just start with the descriptions. So we'll start with that. What that means is the first column on our report is going to contain whatever row descriptions we identify in our row definition. So now that we've got a description column, we're going to want to add all our columns for our months. So here we can add months one at a time. You can also paste columns just like a normal Microsoft Office program. So we're going to want 12 columns here to capture all of our months. And here, FD means financial dimension, so it's saying we're pulling from your ERP system. Fiscal year base means whatever we identify upon the report generation as our base year is going to use. That's fine. We want to keep that. But here, period, we want to identify the actual period. We want to hard code these period values in here. So obviously the first period is going to correspond to the first period of your fiscal year. So we're going to want to go all the way up. A few more columns here. So now we've got each month identified here. This is going to be January through December since we're just using a calendar year. Periodic, we've got our options here. Periodic beginning balance, year to date, or year to date beginning balance. Basically what this periodic means, only for the period identified. Year to date means the period identified and everything before to the beginning of the fiscal year. So we're just going to want periodic since we just want each month. The column width here, you can define it, or you can, there's an option for autofit. So we're going to tell it to autofit. We don't know how large these columns are going to be, and we'd like Management Reported to figure that out for us. Alright, so now we've got every month auto-fitted columns. We can come down a little further and we can identify some print control options. So you may have thought when I said to add every month, well, if we only wanted to see the first 3 months of the period, all the rest of the periods would have blank information, and we really don't want to see all those blank periods here. So there's actually a conditional print option here that's going to help us. Here it's print only if the period is less than or equal to the base period we choose. So now if we choose that and copy that over to the other columns here, each one of these months is only going to print if we choose a base period that's greater than their month. Alright, so now we've got all our months. We're going to want to add, usually, people like to see how they've done for the whole year to date. So we can show you a year to date calculation right here. You just choose it in the periods covered. The base period is fine because we're going to grab whatever we define on our report generation. We'll change this to autofit as well. Since we didn't manually define a period, We don't need this conditional print because it's always going to be less than or equal to the base since it is the base. Finally, we're going to add one calculation column to show you that. Most calculation columns are either calculations between different columns or calculations on certain rows. So we'll go over each of those, but we'll do it on certain rows for now. You choose calculation in the column type, and then you just come down to the formula and define what you want the calculation to be. So here we're going to take the year-to-date amount, which is column N, and we want to divide that by what's called a base row. A base row. It'll make more sense what that means when we get to our row, but basically a base row is just you define on your row what you want your calculations to base off of. We'll do it for this, we'll do it as a percent of sales. So here we're going to say divide the year-to-date value by the amount of sales, and that'll give us our percent of sales in this column. So that's column O. Alright, so now we have every month on conditional print, a year-to-date, and a calculation. That's a pretty good summary there of a lot of what you tend to see on reports. So let's go ahead and save that. We've got a new column definition. Let's just call it test 1. Same thing here. We can drag it into a folder if we'd like. But that's good to go. Now that we've created our column, we're going to move on to our row. Once again, choose it in your pane, top left, and click New. Now, in terms of rows, this can lead to lots of data entry, manual data entry here. So we're going to want to leverage as much as we can the information we already have. So to start, I just wanted to show you that it's possible to actually paste values from Excel. A lot of people are very familiar with Excel these days, so they find working with Excel to be easy, and then they can get it how they want it. Come in here, grab the values, and then just paste them in. So here we just paste in our descriptions. We could have just manually started typing these in, but just to save us some time and to show you that functionality, I wanted to paste from Excel there. So now we've got all our descriptions. The next column here is format codes. We've got a number of options here. The most common are these at the top. All these at the bottom are really just formatting options, tend to be formatting things. So obviously we've got total and calcs. These are our calculation options. Description just means it's a description. It's not going to link to anything necessarily. We've got titles. Here's our base row that we referred to a second ago. And page breaks, and then the rest tend to be formatting. So let's enter in some of these values here to show you what each of them do. Here we'll use a description just to have a blank line here at the top to make it a little more spread out and looking good. Here we'll use a left title just to designate our revenues section. From there, it's going to be sales is going to be just a link to the actual dimension. So when you're defining something that's an actual value, it won't have a format code there. You're just going to want to double-click the links to financial dimensions and define where your information is pulling from. So here it's asking where is sales. The easiest way I've found to start building these is if you already have account categories, accurate account categories set up in GP. That way, all you have to do is come in here, and sales is obviously going to be sales. So if you have your accounts labeled correctly, in terms of their categories within your ERP system, you're going to find a creation of reports that much easier. And also, an added benefit to using account categories is if any changes are made to the chart of accounts, as long as your account categories are added to those new accounts, then your reports won't need to be manually adjusted. They will reflect those new changes automatically. That would not be the case if you defined these accounts manually by, say, account number, like here. You can do ranges, obviously. Let me show you another way to quicken the compilation of reports. So there are things called dimension value sets. It would kind of perform the same type functionality as defining an account category, but it would be more within Management Reporter. So here you can see I've created a value set called cash, and I'm just defining it as all the accounts from 1000 to 1190. So here you can choose, instead of choosing an individual or range of accounts or an account category, you could actually just choose one of your dimension value sets here and click OK. This is not going to be cash, so sales, returns, and discounts. Rather than going through every one of these, I'm just going to paste in the rest of the account categories here so that we can move on to more vital information here. So it's going to start from sales. So here you can see, still able to paste in no matter what. And then I'll go through some of these format codes. Some of them are new. So here we've got our CBR designation. What we're saying is we want to define the base row. So like I said, we wanted to do a percent of sales calculation. Sales is row 220. So we just say 220 here. So now our base row is going to be sales for the whole report until we define a new one down the line. We're just going to leave this one base row so we can have that column calculation we made be correct. These are just line breaks. Usually you put them before totals and after totals. So here's a total, a calculation. The way you do a total is by identifying the specific rows you want to total. So for this one, we'd want 220, which is sales, and then we'd want all the way to 310, which is cost of goods sold. So here you notice that the designation of 220 through 310 is a colon. That is a Management Reporter type character. So we've got some more description columns, which we already went over. Another left title. Same here, totals. So now we've come down to calculation. A calculation is slightly different from a total in that you can do slightly more complex things with it. You can do division and multiplication and things. But the one caveat with using a cal format code is that you have to put @ symbols anytime you're identifying a row. If you were to just put, let's say, gross profit, which is 370, and you said 370 minus 640, which is total operating expenses, that would give you a negative number because it just thinks you're saying the number 370 minus the number 640. So for a calculation, if you're going to do, if you're identifying rows, you actually have to put @ symbols in front of each of them. That way, Management Reporter knows you're referring to one of these row codes and not just the number itself. The rest of these, I believe I've went over. So let's go ahead and finish out putting in these formulas. All right, so this is pretty much a basic report here with our descriptions, our formats, and our links. There's some other things I'd like to show you. For instance, we've got the ability here to just write some descriptions and general things that you don't want to print on a report, but you want to be included in this row definition. So say this is a test. We don't want this row to be printed. We can come over here to the print control and tell it this is a non-printing row. NP is the designation of that. Sales, we want to, since we're doing a percent of sales column calculation, we don't really care if that if the sales row touches that, because it's always going to be 100%, obviously. So we can actually use this column restriction to help us accomplish that. The calculation column was column O. Just know that from memory. So we want the sales really to only flow from column A through N. We don't really care if sales is included in the sales percent calculation because it's going to be the same every time. Besides that, now we're just really into the formatting options of reports. So here, let's add a little bit of nicety to this and add some gray color to easily designate our expenses and revenues sections. Also, the important number down here, we want this to stand out, so let's go ahead and make that bold. So I'm going to try and save this. It's going to error, so I just want to show you another functionality here. So when you try to save something and you've got errors in it, it's going to not let you save it, and you're going to have to fix all the errors before you can. So we're going to say OK here. It's got errors. So here this is saying row code 340 is not an amount row. So let's go up to 340. So we really meant here 370. We wanted gross profit. So let's go ahead and change that. We want this to be 640. That's our total operating expenses. This one's going to go through 310. 520 to 580. Then we're going to take total expenses is going to be total operating plus depreciation plus amortization plus other. And then finally we're going to do, this is going to be 880. This is going to be 370. Okay, so the last things, you'll see these rows aren't numbered, and Management Reporter won't let you save it if there's some rows without numbers. The easiest way to remedy that is to just come up here, edit, renumber rows. You can define the starting point in the increment. But it'll renumber your rows for you, and it'll change the formulas here you've got accordingly, so you're not going to have to go through and change those again. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this row definition. Oh, we've got one more problem here. So this is going to be $1090 plus your tax expense, $1150. I'll name it the same thing so it's obvious which ones I'm supposed to use. So here we got that. So now we've created a reporting tree, a column definition, and a row definition. Now all we have to do is combine those all into one report. So once again, click the reporting definitions up to the top left and click New. Here you're going to see a lot of different options. This is the first tab you're taken to. So here you define your company. That's fine. The detail level, I almost always go at least the financial account level. If it's an enormous report, you can just do it at the financial level because it'll take longer, but it provides, I think financial account provides the right level of detail here. You can do it for posted, unposted, or both. Here we're defining our base, period, and year. If you remember that from our columns, those were important variables there. So down here in our building blocks is where we actually tell, okay, this report needs to use what row and what column. So we named them both test 1 in terms of the row and column. So all we got to do is choose those. Here our tree type. We do want to use a reporting tree. So let's go ahead and choose that one that we created as well. So now we've got all that defined. Let's go through the other tabs real quick. Some general settings here. This is where you're going to define the output and distribution. Here it's going to go, the library defines where it goes in the report viewer side of the program. And here you can also define a shared link location on a network or something of the sort. You can also do multiple. Here are some general options that are pretty much self-explanatory, but our real area of concern here is going to be headers and footers. So this is obviously the headers and footers section of your entire report. They automatically have right here some what they call auto text, which is a variable. So this one basically is going to, according to what company you choose when you generate the report, the company description will populate here. Since we're doing an income statement, we want to label this as an income statement. So we'll move those all down one row, and you're definitely able to just type in manually what you want it to say. Let's go ahead and make that bold and make it a little larger. So those were some of our formatting options that you're probably well familiar with. So now we've got our income statement, company description, then the unit, and then it's going to say which periods and then the date that it covers. I'll show you just a few more options in terms of auto text. A lot of these we just went over. There's date and time options as well, page numberings, text fields from a reporting tree, and then things like how much, if there's rounding and things of that nature. So what's real important or makes a report look more professional here is to add a company logo to a report. This is where you would do that action. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the top left header section. So to do that, you select your section that you want it in, click image. I already have one here added, but in order to add a new one, you would just click the add button and find the picture. You can modify it. If it's too big, you can scale it. The picture I had was originally large, so I had to scale it down to 35%. And you can name the image. So let's go ahead and insert that. And you can see the name that was defined is what's going to show up in your first section. And finally here you can tell it when to start the page numbering. The last tab is the settings tab, and it just has some general settings that are fairly useful. We're not going to have any rounding here. The calculation priority you shouldn't have to be concerned with. If you find that a column and a row calculations are intersecting and they don't return the number you're expecting, I would come in here and try changing the order of calculation. The only thing that's I would say that's pretty important in here is the unit selection in terms of what we're going over today. Since we have a reporting unit, we're going to want to define this. So we're going to leave it to select the units at runtime. That'll allow us to choose which reporting tree levels we want to run the report for. Here you've got some general other formatting options. So same with here. You can change the orientation of the page and some general other things. All right, so we are satisfied with this report now. We've got it all defined. Let's go ahead and save that. Name it the same thing. So now we've got that saved. This company uses a 2017 year. It has information. So here now we're going to say, let's go ahead and generate the report. And what we want to do is define the base period and the base year. So what we're saying here is we want the report to generate for March 3rd of the year 2017. So all you do when you're ready is to come up to the top right and click the generate button. Now since we told it to select the units at runtime, it's going to ask which units we want to run this for. Let's run it for every unit. And once again, you can see having the segment descriptions would be useful here. Those would be better defined within your ERP system. Once you click OK, you're going to get the report queue status window. This is just going to show you how it's processing, what it's doing exactly. You can also see some any errors on previously generated reports. Once it generates, it opens up the report viewer portion of the program. So here we see our completed statement, income statement. We've got all our formatting, all the lines. We've got here our calculation. So we notice though there's no column headers here. It's not defined here. We don't know what each of these values mean. So I just wanted to show you coming back to edit something after you've validated it. But everything else looks pretty good. Maybe we want to change these to percentages rather than just decimals. So let's just go back and do that real quick just to show you what that would be like. So we can close out of the queue status window. We're going to want to go back to our column. So navigation-wise, there's two easy ways to get back to your column that's associated with the report. You can choose this button. It's the same button up here though. Same with reporting trees and rows. So let's go back to our column. And let's start labeling some of these so it's got something that tells us what it is. What we want here is we want the month. Since each of these is going to be a different month, that would be very useful. So once again, we'll just paste these across every month. And since they're variables, they'll automatically change for us according to what month it is. We do have year-to-date values and periodic values in the same thing, so we're really going to want to identify and separate those out. So let's do another header here and call it periodic to define that these are just months. We'll change the formatting option here to be a box. And let's spread this periodic. Since every one of these is periodic, you can actually spread it across different columns. Let me see what the end column is here. So M is the last one we want it to go to. So we'll retype that, periodic. And we spread it from B to M. So now that is going to spread across all of these when we generate our report. Here we want to define something in our year-to-date. So we really want both the month and the year here. And you can put a space in between them just to make it easier to read. And we'll match the other function we have over there. Finally, we're going to define our column calculation. And this is just going to be % of sales. Let's see what formatting and that's fine. So now we've got columns. We're going to save that, come back to our report. 317 we're fine with. Regenerate it for all the reporting units. So you can also see what kind of reports were completed recently by choosing that button. The owner obviously is there as well. Alright, so here now we have a little bit more useful information here in terms of column headers. That one should probably be underlined, and maybe words saying year to date up here might be useful. And then maybe changing this to a percentage. Let me show you real quick how to change that to a percentage. So over here you can actually just override the format and say this needs to actually be a percentage. And then you can let's change these back to like so, and save and regenerate. So here now we have a pretty good looking income statement with our logo, everything's labeled properly. We've got some nice formatting here that delineates our revenues and expenses section, and we've got net income popping out and our percentages right here. So that's a pretty good income statement. I did want to go quickly through a balance sheet. We're going to do it in a different way. I didn't mention this originally on purpose because to learn the most, I think it would be best to go through each element individually. But there's actually a utility in the Designer program that allows you to, it's a report wizard, so it really walks you step by step through the process. Like I said, I think going through each of those individually was more educational, but I did want to show you the report wizard real quick. So here we're going to do a balance sheet. It's got some report templates here. You can see we could have done a rolling quarter here. So then you just choose your actual book code. Click Next, and this is where you just define what each of these sections is going to have within it. So let's just go through these real quick. Luckily, the company that I'm in is fairly easy to tell what each one is. So cash and short-term investments. Current assets, it's 1,300 to 1,410. We've got property, plant, and equipment. We don't want to include the accumulated depreciation yet, since that's going to be its own section. Accumulated depreciations here. Current liabilities. We're going to want, missed one on our property plant. Current liabilities, we're going to want 21 to 20. So we're all fun. 40. Is it current? Okay, there's only a few more long-term liabilities. It's going to be down to this. Stockholders' equity. It's going to be these three. And finally, our net income is going to be everything else. Okay, so we've defined what each section's pulling from. Here you can just do some general moving around of things if you don't like the way it's set up. They tend to, the template's pretty good in terms of defining the right sections here. So we're going to go ahead and leave it as it is. Here you can, like we did manually, you can tell it to shade the total lines or shade the lines. And these things within the brackets are going to be variables here for us. So let's go ahead and say we're okay with that as well. You can tell it to create one report for the entire company, or you can actually, it can create multiple reports based off of a certain segment. So here we've already seen division and department used. Let's just create one report for the entire company, and then we can run it against different reporting different levels of the reporting tree if we would like. So let's call it test 2 balance sheet. And you can actually tell it to generate that right when the wizard closes. But we're going to turn that off for now. So once we click next here, it's just going to say, okay, here's what you've defined. Go ahead and click finish. Now it created everything for us. It's all labeled the same, our rows and columns, so we can come in here and see what it did. Obviously pretty simple thing right here. Let's add, since this is a year to date, a lot of us like to compare that against the previous year to date. So let's just do fiscal year. We want the base minus 1. So if I chose 2017, this column is going to give us 2016. And then we can do a quick calculation to show you what doing a calculation between columns would be like. We can just say B minus C. And that's going to give us our current year minus our last year, so we can see how we did comparatively. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of auto text here to make it look better. Fiscal year, we're going to want the month that we run it for. Grab that so it's easier. Paste it in there. And we can call this year over year. Okay, so let's just save that. I wanted to point out that you could, after using the wizard, come in here and make all your changes. So let's run what the wizard did and see what we came up with. Switch to 2017 here. Everything else looks fine. Let's add our reporting tree that we made to it, and let's make sure that it's allowing us to select units at runtime, and then we can run it. So here's what it ended up with after our reporting wizard. There's a few things I would personally come in here and change manually. Most of them to do with formatting though, nothing too significant. This is a quick way to do it, the report wizard, if you know what you're dealing with. I did want to show you the options finally for creating charts and whatnot within your reports. So if you notice, you can right click on a value and you can tell it to select the row or the column. So let's select this column and compare our current liabilities year over year. Here you can just see it's very, very quick and simple. All you have to do is highlight it and click the corresponding chart that you want. If you click one and you kind of want it out of the way, but you don't want to delete it from the report, you can use this pin, and you can collapse that as well. So now every chart that's pinned up here is going to be tied to the report itself, and anybody that comes in and opens this report will be able to see all these charts. And along the same lines as the charts, you can add comments. And once again, if somebody else comes into this report, they'll be able to see your comment. You can ask them about certain values or whatnot. And since we chose it at the financial and account level, we can actually drill down into it. Here, this is where we choose which part of the reporting tree we want to see. So you can also collapse all these if it's getting a little messy. But other than that, so let me just recap. We went through creating a rolling month income statement from scratch. And we did that by going first through the reporting tree, then the column, then the row, and then the report itself. And then we showed the alternative way of creating a report, which would be through the report wizard. And it's got a few templates in there. It's a nice way to get started, and then you can format it as necessary. Finally, we went through adding charts and graphs to it, and sharing comments with anybody else that wants to view the report. So now we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. I see we've got one question here in our Q&A section. That's going to pretty much end our presentation here. If you do have any questions, feel free to email info@ibisinc.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for your time, everyone, and have a good day.